Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this video we are looking at the SH Figuarts Iron Man Mark 43. This is from the Age of Ultron movie officially. That's the packaging in case you're curious. Pretty nice packaging if you want to leave it in there to display it. That would be good. So this guy, I'm pretty sure he's a complete repaint of the 42 that came out a little while back. I don't have that, so I don't know for sure. They might have tweaked a few things, I don't know. But it doesn't really matter, I guess, because we're just going to be reviewing this guy. So he stands at about 6¼ inches tall, and if you're curious, that is just about 16 centimeters. So he's pretty close to Marvel Legends size, definitely close enough that you could probably make it work. And this guy does look really good. It's a really nice looking figure. It's not as shiny as I maybe would prefer, but it's definitely not bad. And it's probably what he's supposed to look like based on the movie. I don't think this particular look is supposed to be as shiny as the other ones necessarily. So that's okay. And obviously the sculpt work is pretty darn good. I mean, there's just loads of detail in the sculpt. Looks really, really nice. So that's really good. It's probably the best thing about this guy is the sculpt. Then he does come with some accessories. We'll go through those really quick so we can get to the rest of the review. He's got 6 different blast effects. So these two are the ones that are actually for the repulsor blast, for the shooting. They're not perfectly straight, so I think a little bit of hot water or a hairdryer will straighten those out, but shouldn't be a problem. They're nice and translucent yellow with the frosting for the white. So we have 2 of those. Then we have the stabilizer ones for the hands, also for flight. And then we have the propulsion ones for the feet, also for flight. So that's pretty nice that we get those multiple pieces. Obviously we have the 2 fist hands, and these wrist guards are connected to the hands just like the other Figuarts Iron Man. So those just pop off, and then you can put them on these hands. So we have 2 relaxed, non-blast effect hands, just painted repulsors, and you just put the wrist guards on there. Then we also have 2 kind of I'm ready to shoot you type of hands, or whatever else you want to use those for. And then of course we have the hands that are meant for the repulsor blasts. I will post photos at the end so you can see what they look like in action. They work pretty well, so no complaints there. These have the peg hole at an angle so that you can put the palm up nicely. These ones do not, so these are definitely just meant for relaxed posing. So that's pretty cool. Those are decent accessories. That's it though. No like alternate faceplates or anything, or up faceplates or anything like that. So could have had more, but definitely this is enough. So no problem with that. Now as far as the paint goes on this guy, the red is all uniform for the most part. Really no problems there. Every once in a while you find a little bit of a faint area, particularly on the hands. They don't look quite as vibrant as the rest. The silver all looks really good. It's nice and uniform, and it's a nice color silver. Now, mine, I don't know if this is how they all are. Mine seems to be slightly less vibrant in the gold department. Just comparing it to this picture, the gold's definitely more vibrant there. And then on the back, it seems a little bit more pronounced as opposed to, or compared to the silver. Like for example, if you look on the thigh, the gold seems a lot more gold and a whole lot less almost silver like this one. And then based on some photos I've seen online, I don't know if it's just the way they look, and mine looks the same as all of them in person. It just seems a little faint, so they might all be this way, they might all not, I don't know. It's not bad, it's just I do wish it was just a little bit more gold. He almost looks like a Silver Centurion Iron Man. So that's a little odd. I haven't been able to really figure out if mine's painted different or if it's just the way it looks in hand. I don't know. So that's for you guys to consider. The eyes are white, but because of the shading, or the literal shading, the shadows, they do look a little dull. Obviously, they don't light up, which would be awesome, but there's nothing really to do to combat that other than to make them light up, so no big deal. Then the arc reactor in the chest has a nice sculpt and then a clear piece over top of it, so it looks pretty cool. And again, couldn't make that look any better without making it light up. So as far as the articulation goes, some of it is great on this guy, and then some of it is just absolutely silly. There are some really dreadful things about this figure, and I'll point them out as we go. Like I said in the beginning, though, it's a really nice looking figure. So once you get him posed, he's fine. but there are some serious issues, so make sure you pay attention as we go through this. So first of all, for the head, mine comes off really easily. I've heard that that's not a common issue, but mine does when you lean the head back. It's just a basic double ball peg in there, or a barbell, and that goes into the top of the neck. Let's see if I can get that back on camera. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. We will see. And I think we will. Come on, go. Okay, so because of that double ball peg and the way the neck is sculpted, you can get the head pretty far back. It's not perfect for a flight pose, but it's definitely good enough. And then, of course, you can move it down and side to side, and you can get pretty good range of motion out of there. The only thing limiting it is the chin hitting the shoulders, or whatever you want to call that, and there's nothing you can do about that, so that's fine. The neck is also on a ball peg, so that moves around a lot. It goes really far forward, probably more than it needs to, but that doesn't really matter, it's fine. It doesn't go as far back as I would like, so that's probably where we lose some of that neck posability. Again, it's not bad, but it's something to consider. Side to side, no problem at all. Now the shoulders, here's where we have an issue. The shoulder pads are on a little hinge, which is good, but that hinge is literally part of the shoulder joint. So it moves with the shoulder. This should have been a floating piece on a ring that goes around the peg for the shoulder so that this can just move independently and stay up with the body or go down. This is only moving with the shoulder, which you may not think is a problem, but I'll show you why it's a problem as we go through this. And then the other issue with the shoulder, other than the sculpt on this, the way these kind of flip up, they don't really do that on the actual suit. They go straight in, so that looks a little odd in some cases and doesn't really have to be like that, and it's problematic, which I'll also show you as we're going. But before we get to that, our problem here is that the shoulder is super, super stiff. The ball peg that goes into the torso that allows for, see, I can't even do it, that allows for the shoulder ball to move around, it's super stiff. It takes a whole lot of force. This right here, that's on the ball peg, but it's almost impossible to twist without using a whole lot of force, and it feels like it's going to snap. So this piece right here, that's just a floating cap that hides the joint. But as you can see now, as you start to move this around, having the shoulder pad connected to the shoulder is going to be a problem. It still hinges, but it doesn't allow for the nice look of the posability, or for the posability. Like if you want to put the shoulder here, you should still be able to have the shoulder pad at the top if you want, rather than always going straight back. And again, it's not a huge deal. It's not something that I'm going to say don't buy this figure because of it, but it's really not good. And the way, and because of that, it always wants to bump up against this back piece of armor. And then the way these kind of flip up instead of going down, or at least straight, they also become a problem. It always gets in the way of this back piece unless you bring the arm all the way forward. So it takes a whole lot of patience and finagling to get the shoulders to do what you want them to do, especially when they're so tight. It's really, really risky. It's just that ball peg though. The outside part, this part, works just fine. So maybe that's not a uniform issue, maybe it'll be okay, but I think it could have been a lot better. And then the other thing is that once you bring the arm down, like I said, this should be an independent piece. It shouldn't have to go all the way down and leave you that big gap at the top. So it's just kind of a strange design why they didn't make that a separate piece. Would have been much better that way, I think. Anyway, it's functional enough, it's just really problematic, so be extra careful. And then of course we have our bicep swivel, nothing special there. Really nice elbow design. Looks a little awkward because it gets so elongated, but I don't know what else you could do, so I'm okay with it. It hides the joint well enough, and it works well, so no problems there. Now for the wrists, it's not a huge deal, but the wrists themselves are just basic ball pegs. No hinging, no double ball peg, nothing. So you are a little bit limited in what you can do with the wrists, and you do end up with a gap in there, so it's not the best situation, but it's not really a problem. And then the wrist guards, they do work just fine. So if you want to put the repulsor hand on there, that'll fold up on that hinge, no problem at all. You'll see that in the photos later. For the upper torso, I think it's a single ball peg. It could be a double, I haven't pulled it apart, but we do get a pretty decent ab crunch. It goes that far back and that far forward. So it's not bad, definitely decent range for an ab crunch, or diaphragm joint technically. And it looks good all the way around. I guess if you go all the way forward, you can see a little bit in the back, but just don't look at it and you'll be fine. It does go side to side a little bit, Doesn't have nearly as much range of motion, but it's definitely enough to get some poses out of it, so that's good. And we do get a little bit of a twist in there, but not that much. Most of our twist is going to come down here, but again, that only gives you a little bit. So it's going to be pretty limited. That's as far as you can make him turn at the waist. So it is a little bit limited. It does have an extra, because that's just a ball peg down here, so you do get a little extra play in all of the bendies. So that's good. It's not bad at all. That's fine. Now for the hips, you might see right off the bat, they're really wide. Like really wide. And it doesn't look good because you can see right in and see all of his junk. I don't mean junk like you're thinking. I mean junk like the ball peg that connects the hips to the crotch. It's not good. You can see it. It's not the right color. It's just a piece of gray plastic. The hinged ball pegs that we're familiar with SH Figuarts, they're just right out in the open due to that big wide gap. So that's really not a good design. The only way to hide those is to bring the leg down, which is really difficult because that hinge is also super tight, just like the shoulders. Almost feels like it's going to break. So as you can see, that reveals the peg even more. But then once you bring the leg up, obviously, from the front anyway, you can't see the joint as much. So it's a really awkward joint because it works when you bring the leg up, but then you still do have that big gap, which I know you can't do anything about that. So that's fine. But that's the only time the leg looks any good at all, or at least the hip, is when the leg's up like that. Like if you're going to have him kneeling or have his leg out like that, it looks fine. But anything else in this joint is just bad. Really, really bad. It's really, see, I can't even push it up right now. It's really stiff. So it's problematic. It looks okay from the side, but from the front, not good at all. So you can see by that, though, you have a ball peg in here to move the hip around. And then for some reason, they made this a ball peg instead of just a thigh swivel. I'm not sure why we have that extra movement in there. I guess so that you can tuck it up over the belt area, maybe? I don't know. It's weird, but that's fairly loose. And then this part is really, really tight. So it's a very strange setup, and it does push the thighs out too far, give them a really weird stance. I'm hoping the 45 doesn't have that same issue, because that's my biggest problem with it. It just looks really bad. Any sort of standing pose just looks bad. It's really disappointing. For the knees, really good knees. I like that knee joint a lot. So that hides the joint really well. Everything tucks in on itself for that double jointed knee. Can't even tell there's a joint there until you use it, and then it still looks good. So I like that a lot. For the ankles, we have a decent hinge. So there's a hinge in here. It doesn't look like you get that much play, but this is technically a softer piece of plastic. I wouldn't flex it too much, but you can push against it. So you can bring the foot that far forward, and then you can push it up about that far. So you get a pretty good range of motion. You get a really nice toe joint, which works seamlessly. It just doesn't have the greatest bend to it, but it's still an effective joint. It looks good. And then you can see in here, I mean, sure, you can see the joint a little bit, but it gives you a really good ankle rocker. So I do appreciate that. So like I said, this guy does some things really, really well, like the ankles, the knees, the elbows, really well. The head and the neck, for the most part, really well done. The torso, decently well done. But then those shoulders and those hips, not that good. It's not horrible. It's not enough to say don't buy the figure, but it's just, those pegs right there are way too long. Way too long. This should be the pose where he looks best, and everything else should look awkward. This is the one that looks awkward the most. Those pegs are way too long. And this piece isn't soft at all, so pushing anything against it, not a good idea. So you're going to have to finagle with it a little bit, play with it a little bit. It's worth getting still. I would suggest it. Just don't expect it to be perfect. Those problems are definitely problems. Be aware of those, and you'll be okay. So stick around here. I'll show you some photos of this guy in action so you can see how good he actually looks, because he does look really good once he's posed. And make sure you check out Big Bad Toy Store, guys. I really do recommend them. I'm not just plugging them to plug them. It's a great place to buy your action figures and collectibles, and there's a link in the description below for that. I also suggest you subscribe to my channel and like this video if you did, because that really does help me out, and I appreciate it, guys. So thanks for watching. Make sure you stick around for my upcoming figure reviews, custom figures, and other good stuff. And in the meantime, keep collecting.